This is Twisted Passages with award-winning author Marie Sutro. Now, let's take a deep dive into the dark world of psychological thrillers and meet the authors who created them.
Hello, and welcome to Twisted Passages. I'm your host, Marie Sutro, and today we have New York Times bestselling author Kate Alice Marshall here to talk about her new release, The Girls Before. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Before I jump into this absolutely hair-raising novel, can you start listeners off with an overview of what the story is about?
Absolutely. The Girls Before is the story of two women. First of whom is Audrey, who is a search and rescue volunteer who has stumbled across evidence she believes is connected to the disappearance of a teenager who attends the high school where she works as her day job. And no one else thinks that this girl is anything other than a runaway. But Audrey is certain that there's something else going on here, and she starts to dig into it. And our other perspective is a girl who is locked in a dark room who calls herself Stranger. She has been trapped there for a long time, but her captor has stopped coming and she is running out of food and water. So she has to find a way to get herself free, or she knows she's going to die down there. And she is accompanied by a sort of chorus of ghosts of her own invention, who are the girls who were down there before her and have left messages scratched in the dark in the hopes that maybe the next girl could escape.
As you described, it is so very chilling. I have to start out with the first thing that readers get when they first start in and they go to the first chapter, if it's okay, because it's on page 1, so I don't think we're giving anything away. This book is split into the above and the below, and you literally take us chapter to chapter and let us know this is happening in the above and this is happening in the below. Can you describe how that came about, the idea of using that as a convention? Because even those two words and that delineation are absolutely as chilling as everything that you described, just those two words.
I went through a lot of options when I was figuring out how to label those two sections, and it informed the point of view as well, because I knew that I wanted to tell the story from both perspectives. I had Stranger first, and then I knew that I needed someone who was searching. I needed my searcher character, and I created Audrey to fill that role. So the obvious thing was to just use their names as the headers, but Stranger is, she calls herself that because she is so alienated from her own identity. And that is a name that she has applied to herself. And there was something that felt really wrong about imposing it on her externally, even as the author. And also, I started writing in third person with her, but using that name Stranger over and over again, it felt like, no, that needs to be something that she is saying to herself, not something that the narrative is saying about her. And so I knew that I needed to find something else, and that was the obvious next option, was that we have one storyline that's literally happening above in the open, in the light, and then Stranger, who is in complete darkness down below. And that is the biggest, defining aspect of these two perspectives for the first section of the book.
Like I said, it was absolutely so chilling and so powerful because it hurts. It hurts to go into the below as the reader, and it hurts to go out and go back into the above when you know that Stranger is in this situation. And it really, almost more so than any other novel, impressed upon me how we go about our daily lives and there are people suffering all over this planet. And to some degree, you can't let that all in, right? Because you'd never get out of bed. But the issue around missing women and what Audrey's struggling with, she does volunteer in search and rescue. She is very driven to try to help people and to find people. And it is such an issue in our society. We have so many missing, and we just, depending on who they are, we just kind of let it go. And I was wondering how the society that we all function in, where there'll be certain cases that make it to the news, but then there's thousands and thousands that never do. How did that inform this book for you, and that passion that you infused into Audrey?
That's certainly an issue that I thought about. For me, in this book, my approach was to think kind of more narrowed in and personally, and think about the things that we miss in the people that we know. And Audrey has a friend from childhood, Janie, who they were best friends, and then they had a big friendship breakup, which I think anyone that's had one knows that those can be like the far more intense and painful than even a romantic breakup. And so she really was angry with Janie and didn't notice when Janie's life kind of kept falling apart. And then Janie left town. But she didn't just leave town, she disappeared, and basically no one noticed. And so you take that big issue of the people we lose, and for me, I have to center it very specifically in a character and in a singular person in order to be able to feel like I can approach it. And so Audrey's guilt over not staying in touch and not noticing, and her feeling of not knowing who this person was, who should have been one of the most important people to her, is where I found entry into that. And you see it echoed elsewhere with there's this family called the Hills that are very important. And we know them through Audrey's perspective. She's encountered them throughout her life in small fleeting encounters and a few more substantial ones. She doesn't know them, but she knows enough about them to have pretty firm opinions of them. But throughout the book, you have to question, what does she know about them, and what is going on with them, and what did happen with them when she was young as well? Who are these people, and what are they going through? And so that was sort of where I really focused, just trying to find those places where we lose people, not just physically, but we lose track of them and what's going on with them. And those are sort of those threshold moments where you can reach out and pull someone back in, or you can lose them completely.
You did a masterful job in this story of digging into human behavior and digging sometimes into the people who are kind of prickly and not easy to be with, and really making a case that just because someone's super prickly and maybe they're super painful to be around, that doesn't mean they're a bad person, and there may be reasons why. And you gave us so many reasons why, either through Audrey explaining things or through flashback scenes that we would get when people would flash back to what had happened in the past. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, that I've been burning to talk to you about, is this concept, and I think you mentioned it in the acknowledgement, of messy girls. Sometimes people are messy and they're not easy to love, and they're not even easy to like sometimes. What do you mean by that term, messy girls?
It's all about Janie for me, because, that friendship breakup was deserved. And Audrey didn't do anything wrong deciding not to be friends with Janie anymore, because Janie was a bad friend. She did some pretty nasty things, and she was bad for Audrey's self-esteem, even when they were getting along. And so you can see that Janie has all of these flaws, but she also has this, I want to say almost magical presence to her. She was dynamic and charismatic, and she really loved her friend. She loved Audrey. She didn't know how to do it in a way that was healthy or kind, but she came from a very difficult childhood and a very difficult home life, and she didn't know how to handle that. And Audrey says at one point, if we had gotten the chance, if she had gotten the chance to grow up, maybe we would have been friends again. But that chance has been lost. And Audrey's grappling with the idea of, if I had stuck around, if I had sacrificed my own health and happiness and been maybe not a better friend, but a more present friend to her, could I have changed that? And then is it my responsibility to have done so? And I think that you can both acknowledge that Audrey did the right thing for herself. And she was a kid too, and she was dealing with a lot. And say, Janie wasn't a bad person. She was a troubled kid, and she deserved much better than to just be forgotten.
Yeah, as I said, I think it was absolutely masterful how you laid out these characters and then flipped the lens and made us consider them from different points of view, just like you just said with Janie. A lot of the things that you share with us that she says or does to poor Audrey are horrific. And you think, God, you got to cut this girl loose. And then, like you said, you tell us more about her and we think, oh, it's so sad that you cut her loose, but we know why you did. So I just, like I said, I absolutely loved that. We're traveling at 30,000 feet a lot of the time, right? And so if someone comes up and says, well, you know what my friend said to me? We immediately make a judgment and we say, oh, well, she's blankety blank blank. You needed blah, 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 right? Based on a comment that everyone would agree is awful, but you don't know Janie. So yeah, just really, really so well done, Kate.
Well, thank you.
Now, a little thing I want to go back to from the intro was the fact that going into this interview, I was so excited to interview Kate Alice Marshall, who I thought was a USA Today bestselling author, but you have some news and I would love for you to share it.
Yes. Recently, a couple of weeks ago, A Killing Cold, my previous book, hit the New York Times bestselling list. So now I get to introduce myself as New York Times bestselling author. It's been really amazing. And we were talking about how, you tend to hear a lot of stories about firsts in publishing, debut books, and people are obsessed with first lines. And there are these big new author success stories that catch the attention. And, I like a slow burn book. And I've also always liked the slow burn career stories. And A Killing Cold is not my first book, and it's not my third book. It's been about a dozen books. And this isn't the year it came out. It's been a full year since it came out, and it hit the list with its paperback release, which is in large part to the absolutely beautiful new cover, I think. It's really stunning if you get a chance to take a look. So it's been, I think, perfect for my story that it unfolded in this way that was a long build and a lot of work, and in some ways a wild twist.
I am so very happy for you, and it is so very well deserved. So congratulations, Kate.
Well, thank you very much. We've been celebrating a lot.
I am sure you have been, and I am sure that this book is going to just do equally as well, because the amount of twists you put in this book, anyone who thinks that they know what a roller coaster ride is has not gotten on board with this book yet, Kate, because you gave us so many different twists and you did it so brilliantly. Because I don't want to spoil. It's right on the tip of my tongue. I want to sort this out, but there's so many amazing ways that you make us think, okay, now this. I recall literally being prepared to turn the page and saying, well, wait, there's so much book left. Where are we going? It seems like it's maybe. No, I didn't see that coming. And so it was just so many wait, what moments in the entire book. How did you come up with all those twists, Kate?
This one, I kind of have two ways that I build a book. And one of the ways is very sort of like an intellectual puzzle. So those tend to be the books where I have a book to write and I'm having conversations with my editor and my writing friends about like, what type of book do I want to write next? What would be best? What are my strengths? What's feeling sexy right now? And we kind of build a space out to work in, and then I'm, developing an idea and thinking it through logically and finding all the pieces. And I find that very satisfying. And then there are the ones that just sort of go bleh, and there they are. Just like the whole thing drops on your desk all at once. And this was one of those. I had the idea for the series of scenes that are the transition from above below in part one to what you get next in Stranger's point of view. I had that whole thing and no idea how to get there or where to go from there. But the rest just came together very quickly because from that, I had a sense of a number of characters and their motivations and who they needed to be. And the next thing that I had was Stranger, because actually for several years now, something like 5 years, I've had this character in my head. Just that there was this girl and she had been through something to the point where she named herself Stranger, because she felt so disconnected from who she had been, to the point where she felt like she wouldn't even recognize herself if she met herself. And I realized almost immediately, oh, this is what that character has been waiting for. This is that story. And I followed her from there. And this was a book where the twists were very much baked in from the start. The only thing that changed from kind of draft to draft is that I think I err on the side of ambiguity. Sometimes I like ambiguous endings a lot. And sometimes my editor has to come in and say, Kate, you have to tell us what the answer is. So there was one particular bit about the ending and a mystery that gets answered definitively that is thanks to people swatting my hand about the ambiguity.
Well, I have to say, however it came about, I did love the ending because I got to those last few pages and it ended, or so I thought, and then there was one more and I was like, yes. And that last page was just everything. I mean, it just was the cherry on top. It was so perfect for wrapping everything up and letting us know emotion. Like I felt like, okay, I can breathe now.
See, my editor was right. Oh, and I do want to say, just for the record here, for anyone that's worried, Barry the dog is okay at the end.
Thank goodness, because Barry is absolutely amazing in this story. There are times where, you're dealing with very, very dark topics. I hope this is not a spoiler about Barry, but there is a moment with some bacon. And that, the way you described that, I said, okay, Kate at least has had a dog at some point in her life, or she has pets. And then I saw on social, it looks like you have a Siamese. Is this correct?
Yeah, he's a little shelter cat. We got him, they said he was 2. We think he was a little younger than that because we've had him for 2 years now and he's only just getting a little more mature. He's quite the troublemaker, but we also have 2 golden retrievers. So we have a lot of pet energy in the house.
Well, as I said, I knew that you were all about the animals because the scene with the bacon is so spot on. All of your dog references, Barry, is so real, but that bacon scene just takes the cake right there. Now, speaking of scenes and scenery and setting, this story is set in the Pacific Northwest, which is where you are, correct?
Yes, I am currently in Oregon. I grew up in the Seattle area, so I am all about the rain and the woods.
So I have to ask one more. social media style question. Your commute to work. You posted at one point and you said, here's my commute to work. And oh my goodness, Kate, especially after reading this book and some of your other books, oh my goodness. Can you talk a little about your workspace?
Yeah, so we moved a little over a year ago and we fell in love with this house. And the one issue with it was that I wasn't going to have an office, which is just fine by me because I have always wanted a cute little shed office. And so we built one in the backyard, which is, we live on a wooded hill. And we built the shed and I've got it all painted and decorated the way I like it. It is super cute, itty bitty little place, which is works for me with my tendency toward distraction. And so every morning, all I do is I go out on my deck with my coffee and down these beautiful steps and I settle in. And over the course of the rest of the day, because we live in the woods, we have animals that come through. There are deer who live basically in the backyard and wild turkeys who are my nemesis. And many birds and squirrels. We have a trail camera, so we catch like the skunks and the possums that come through as well. And very excitingly, last summer we had a young mountain lion who was living in under people's porches and things. So I took some days off of working in the little shed while he was around.
I bet you did. Talk about writing thrillers in a thriller that's unfolding. Well, I see where the inspiration comes. You know, Pacific Northwest is one of my favorite places in the world. It's so beautiful. It's so evocative. And oh my gosh, you just brought beauty. You brought everything to this story. So thank you so much for that. Now, Kate, for all of those fans who contributed to the USA Today bestseller and now the New York Times bestseller, and for all of the droves of fans who are going to find you with this book, where is the best place for people to look you up and find out what's coming next?
Yeah, I technically have an Instagram, as you discovered. I'm at K Marshall Arts. It is purely for just posting book news and the occasional photo of my office. And my website is katealicemarshall.com or katemarshallbooks.com works. And from there, you can sign up for my newsletter, which when I remember to send it out is the best way to get news and updates and where I will be. Otherwise, I'm very much a digital hermit, so those are the most reliable spots.
And again, if you're looking for twists and turns, if you're looking for an amazing thriller with all the very best characters and just looking for an absolutely satisfying ending at the end, it is called The Girls Before, and you will love it. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
And thank you all for joining us on this episode of Twisted Passages. We hope to see you next time.